this campaign season seems to be more about anti-establishment, at least on the national level, right? Politics on the local level can be totally different. As a fourth generation politician, or someone active, let's give it that name, and considering your positions that you've held, particularly as the state Democratic chair, how would you cast your candidacy as a progressive? How are you not the establishment?
Well, like they say about Bernie, he's been in the Congress for 20 years, but he's still not the establishment. And I think it really goes more to what your philosophy is, and if you look at your career, have you changed over time? Do you bend with the wind? Do you pick up whatever is most expedient at the time you're running, or are you consistent with your philosophy and you're able to hold that throughout your career? And I like to personally think I have done that, and obviously Senator Sanders has done the same thing, where he's been saying the same thing since the 60s.
So consistency for you. Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. I agree with you. Consistency on a message of progressivism, I think is key. I agree with that 100%. How would you categorize the Democratic establishment that a lot of us young millennials fight against? How would you categorize that as being different than the establishment that you were a part of? Even though you may still hold true to these progressive values, how would we delineate between those two?
Well, I think everybody in their political career, you try to be as pure as you can until there comes a point in your life when basically you sell your soul for power. And I think the Democratic establishment is basically sold out to Goldman Sachs, sold out to the pharmaceutical industries. I mean, at all levels, we basically just bought into them or let them buy into us. And that's really due to Citizens United and the way campaign finance works. So if you want to get elected, you need to raise that money. And where's the money? It's with the corporations.
It's funny you should say that, because just as you were saying that, one of our moderators in the chat room said that not being owned, that's the definition of anti-establishment, is someone who is not owned by special interests. And it sounds like, even though you've been active in politics in Nevada for a very long time, your family has been there for a very long time, you are not owned by any special interest. Would that be a fair assessment?
I would hope that's true. But again, given the way politics works and the fact you have to raise money to be in politics, there are always going to be certain people that if they call you up, you're going to return their phone calls. If they ask you to come meet with them, you're going to meet with them. If you have a fundraiser, you're going to call them up and ask them to come to your fundraiser. So I can't say I'm as pure as Senator Sanders. I would like to have 3 million donors that I could reach out to $27 a person, but that's not reality at my level.
Okay. Hey, I can, you know what? That is, transparency is very, very helpful. Let me dig in something else. One thing, what is a progressive to you? Because there seems to be this outstanding question of whether there is even such a thing as a progressive. Is Hillary Clinton a progressive, or are we just socialists? There's a lot in the mainstream media that is trying to obfuscate the definition of progressivism. So what is progressive to you?
I think at its core, it's that government has a role, and that we should be proud of government. And as Bernie says, basically look to Sweden, look to Denmark, look to Norway as a model where we don't eat up people as part of some capitalist system, but we think that the goal of government is to make sure that people are protected, people are promoted, and then to the extent that we can have a progressive economy too, then that's fine. But you don't leave people behind. You don't leave people in the streets. You don't leave them without health insurance or family leave or any things that we don't have that other countries have. And that's what's so encouraging about Senator Sanders, the fact that, number one, he's willing to say the word socialism, even though he doesn't mean the socialism most people think about. But the reality is government has a role, and we as Americans have never really bought into that basically since the 30s. And we need to get back to that point. I became of age in the 60s. And back then, we all thought that socialism was around the corner. We were all set to do all these things. And then Bobby Kennedy was killed, and the rest of everything kind of fell to the wayside. But even when I worked for President Carter, he was all set to do national health insurance. Right. But then with Reagan, we just took a step back, and we went the opposite direction for so long, but now we're back to the point. And the other thing about it is President Obama, which in my opinion is the best president in history, has gotten us to the point where we now can talk about socialism. You know, we've gotten the basics with having Obamacare there. We have the basics. So now it's where do we try to go from here? And that's why we should shoot for the moon. To try to do it incrementally at this point, to me, is ridiculous. Let's just lay it all out there. You know, Obama's got us to this point. Now let's go to the next step, which is basically national health care. You know, get rid of Wall Street, get all these things that Bernie's talking about. That's the next logical step.
Okay, so let's talk about Nevada specifically. What's going on in your particular